So yes, uh, I welcome you all here today, and the agenda is pretty simple, right? So what we want to make your students understand is what is networking all about. Okay, the networking industry, of course, is one of the most trending industries uh, in our world today, and as we'll understand a little later in this session, why and what on. But yeah, that's what it is, right? So what we want to understand is the networking industry. So we'll be looking into some networking basics. We'll be looking into the CCNA certifications and what it is, right? And why is it so important? We'll be looking in some job trends, okay? Meaning what is the role of network engineers, right? Or maybe like there are other roles as well. This is, I mean, it's not only network engineer. There are some other roles, as you will see a little later on, and we'll understand what is the career perspective, with various of these roles, right? So yes, we'll be looking into the networking industry as a whole, and let's try to and understand what this is all about. Uh, so yeah, a little about us, by the way, before we proceed. So I'm Sohail, I'm from PyNet Labs. PyNet Labs basically is uh, a networking institute. It's a training institute, and we train people from for various networking courses, right? Be it CCNA, CCIE, and various other solutions for networking, and also for cybersecurity and network security as well. I'm Sohail. I'm a senior trainer, and I have been dealing with CCNA, CCNP security, CCNP, and CCNR, like Core and RC courses as well. Yeah, like I said, so what's our objective for today? We wanna clearly understand what is networking as an industry, and we want to also understand what are the networking fundamentals, of course, as much as we can cover in this very short class. But yeah, we will try our best to understand some basic fundamentals of what is it actually, okay? What are we actually dealing with, and why is it so important in today's world? So yeah, that being said, we'll be looking into some networking fundamentals as well, and the major focus is, of course, understanding the network industry as a whole. Okay, so let's understand this. So, what is networking, by the way? See, so networking is essentially communicating between devices, right? So when you talk about networking, networking is nothing but communicating, right? Communication of devices. And when I say devices, of course, as probably as you students might think, it is just PCs and other devices, maybe like laptops or mobile phones. But it is more than that, right? So you have a ton of other devices that you have, for example, networking devices, as you will see a little later on. And These are servers, and these are switches, and these are routers, and all of these put together, they form up a network. And yeah, I mean, like, of course, that is how the world revolves. Now, why is networking important, by the way? Right? As you all know, there are, of course, innumerable use cases that we can speak of. But yeah, the most important one is, of course, communication, right? For example, you and I mean, the entire of your college, and we can simply communicate right now. And if you analyze, right, this is, yeah, I mean, there are apps and stuff, but what is it that makes all of this possible? It is networking, right? It is the internet. And what is the internet? The internet, of course, is networking, right? So yes, communication is one of the most important things that you like make a network for. So all of these apps, right, that you use so regularly and so often, for example, YouTube and Instagram and Facebook, fine. I mean, yeah, these are apps, but what do they run on, right? It's the internet. It is because of the advent of the internet and the way it has progressed and the speeds that you have is uh, is because you can use these apps, right? I mean, take away internet for a while. What good is Instagram? What good is YouTube? Uh, right? The internet doesn't perform as it does. What good is YouTube? Yes, of course, communication is the basis of our world right now, right? And communication, of course, is one of the most important things uh, that you use network for. Okay, communication. I literally mean communication as it is between happening between you and me. There are other things, obviously, otherwise as well. So, for example, resource sharing, right? So, resource sharing could be files, uh, could be, software, for example. uh, they can be doing it already for your projects and stuff. So yeah, you are required to share softwares. Maybe you're working on a collaborative project within your team, maybe, right? And yeah, I mean, like, you have to share files and you have to share resources, right? And it's not only related to the logical aspect of it, right? So meaning when I say uh, files and software, these are of course logical stuff, but there are other things, right? Meaning you are also able to share hardware. Okay, so for example, in offices, if I take an example, maybe, okay, so in an office, let's say, there are like, let's say, hundreds of users, correct? And they want to print, probably, right? Can you give a printer to each and everybody? Of course not, right? That is not something which is logically possible. It's not feasible. I mean, of course, it is possible. I mean, you can give a printer to everybody, but that's not feasible, right? That makes a lot of sense. So what you can do is you can rather have a single printer and connect it to the network so that all these other guys can, the office people can print to this printer, right? Essentially, what you're doing is you're doing printer sharing, right? And of course, all of this is absolutely required in all the offices. Um, what else? Okay, maybe in another scenario, you want to have a centralized storage space. Okay, so maybe you don't want to use the cloud or something, and you just want to have a centralized storage space within your organization. Yeah, I mean, you can share your hard disks, right? Or something like a NAS box or something. Okay, anyway, I'm not going like in too many details, but let's say you have a hard drive and you want to share it with all the people so that they can put those files that they all want to work with on this hard drive, and yeah, so that they can collaborate a little easier. So in a way, yeah, I mean, this is like hard drive sharing in the local premise. Correct. So yeah, I mean, like that is how like that is how like things will work in case of printers, in case of hard disks, and there are many more examples, by the way. But just saying, maybe so you can share files, you can share software as resources, you can share hardware, all of this. What makes it possible? Of course, networking is something that you will be using for all of these things. Correct. So yeah, that's what it is. Now, when you do create a network, okay, so there are different types of course, networks that you can have. And what that essentially means is you can classify the networks. Okay, so when you do create the network, okay, what are the different network types you can have? So again, there are various categories, by the way. So one of the type of networks that you can create is like a peer-to-peer network. Okay, so what is a peer-to-peer network? Peer-to-peer network is basically a one in which there is no particular server and there is no particular client. Okay, so let's say you have like four devices and maybe like let's say it's a very small office or something, and yeah, you just want to have a basic interconnectivity between devices. Okay, so what you can do is you can simply like connect these guys all together. Okay, all these devices together. And yeah, what you have is a P2P network, which is peer-to-peer. Peer-to-peer is essentially there is no server and there's no particular client. Every device is an equal peer, hence the name, like peer-to-peer. Uh, However, of course, as you can imagine, there can be, a client server model. Okay, so client server model essentially is, for example, let's say you are in the banking environment, for example. Okay, so let's say you have a bank, and I mean, of course, in the bank, there are hundreds and thousands of employees, right? There are literally like hundreds and thousands of employees. And as you can imagine, you cannot manage these individually, right? Imagine, I mean, of course, I can only draw so many devices here, but as you can imagine, there are literally hundreds and thousands of devices there. And it's of course not possible for you to, uh, go and manage these individual devices on their own. That's of course simply not possible. What you can rather do is you can have a centralized server. Okay, it could be a Linux server, it could be a Windows server, and you can have a centralized managed solution in various other forms. What this server will rather do is it will connect to these individual devices, and the administrator then can simply manage the server. And through the server, of course, it can manage all these clients. So as you can clearly see, there is clearly a server, right, which is managing these clients, right? So it's of course an easier, much more convenient, way that you are managing this entire network. But of course, this does not simply end up here. There can be various other classifications in which the networks can be classified. Okay, so for example, there can be a classification where you classify things based on the geographical distance that you have. And of course, it also deals with technologies that you will use in these networks. Okay, so for example, the most simplest network and the most smallest network that you can have is something called as PAN, which is personal area network. These are very small networks. They will use Bluetooth and technologies like those. And these will probably connect your mobile phone and your laptop, for example, or maybe your smartphone and your mobile phone, for example. So very small network, very few devices, and this is basically called as the uh, personal area network, PAN, as it is called. Then you have LAN, which is a very common thing in organizations, small offices and stuff, right? So this is a local area network. So local area network essentially is mainly comprised of essentially a switch, and to the switch, okay, there are devices connected to it, and probably I mean at the end of the day, the switch will connect to some router device, and the router will help you connect with the uh, internet. Okay, so the larger internet. Now, again, all of this is like a very basic setup that you have in offices. Okay, so you need network engineers, of course, to do this for them. Uh, Larger than this, of course, there is the metropolitan area network. So, for example, let's say similar to a LAN, okay, meaning like you have LAN, but let's say you have branch offices, let's say in the entire organization. Okay, so multiple LANs across the entire city. Okay, and of course, you want to connect them together. So there is LAN and LAN and LAN 1, LAN 2, LAN 3, and LAN 4. And these are spread across the city. Okay, and yeah, I mean, like it is basically referred to as the metropolitan area network. Okay, but it's a citywide network. Okay, and yeah, like this is like within an organization possibly. And finally, of course, you can have the largest of the largest networks, which is essentially currently referred to as the LAN, as the WAN, which is wide area network. Wide area network can span like huge boundaries. Okay, for example, it can be between cities. Okay, so it can be like between cities, and it can be between states, or it can be the entire India, like pan country. Okay, so pan India network probably, and it can also connect continents together, right? The biggest example of the wide area network is, of course, the internet, right, which is essentially a global network, right? So the entire of the globe that you have, right, and that is what WAN is, wide area network. So these are some basic categorization of types of networks. Uh, Again, there are many more things, but yeah, considering the short nature of this class, we are discussing it in uh, in like a concise, precise manner. All right. So, but yeah, this is what you would classify networks as: P2P networks, client and server, and maybe like PAN, LAN, MAN, and WAN networks. Now, uh, what are the components basically, right? So, whenever you make up a network. Of course, you cannot have one device and you cannot call it a network, correct? Certainly not. You need multiple devices, and yeah, like of course, when you do connect these devices, it forms up your network. That is what uh, networking means, right? That's the basic definition: collection of devices connecting together to perform some objective, right? So components, right? So components basically will, of course, you need your cables and stuff, but yeah, this is mainly of the devices that we're speaking about. So you have some basic devices that you need to be accustomed with, right? So every device, by the way, so let's say you have a desktop device, right? Or you have a laptop probably, right? Or maybe even your smartphone, correct? Etc., etc. Everything internally would have something which is called as a NIC, okay? Which is basically a network interface card. Now, this network interface card is the actual thing that actually connects you uh, to the network. Okay, so meaning it's a hardware device, of course, it's a chip, and the NIC is always present in all of your devices. Okay, literally all, meaning like whatever, if it's a mobile phone, it's a tablet, it's a laptop, and it's a desktop. Whatever it is, the NIC is always present in your devices. So NIC is the one that connects you to the network, and as such, of course, the NIC uh, is a hardware device, right? And it defines your capacity or your capability as to how would you connect to the network. Okay. So what does this essentially mean? So your NIC, if it is something that supports Wi-Fi, of course you can have wireless capabilities. If your NIC is just a LAN-based thing where you can simply connect cables, yeah, I mean like, you will have your LAN port. But yeah, that's what your NIC is then. It provides you with LAN interface. Okay. So yeah, I mean like NIC is one of the most basic things that you should have in your device, and that is how you will be connecting to devices. Then you have switches. Okay, and the basically the switch is like a centralized device. Okay, and this centralized device is something that will help you connect to multiple of your end user devices. Okay, so for example, let's say you have three desktops in my example this way. Okay, and the switch can essentially, so switch basically has ports. Okay, and it's basically an intelligent device. Why do we call it intelligent? Because there was and there is, of course, there is still a device that you can use. Basically, it's called as the hub, which probably you will not find it in most places right now. Kind of because of its problems that it has. But yeah, I mean it looks similar to the switch, meaning it's a box with some ports, and of course you can simply connect devices to it. But the hub, of course, is not an intelligent device, while the switch is. And why do I say that? So hub essentially cannot understand who's connected to which port. Okay, while the switch can. The switch basically has a table which is basically called as the MAC address table, and it understands who is connected to which device. So what do I mean by that? So basically, switch can build up a table, okay, which has a list of its ports. Okay, so let's say my switch has 0, 1, 2, and like three ports, and it knows that, okay, let's like on my switch 0 port, there is the PCA connected, and there is PCB connected, and of course PCC and PCD and so on and so forth. And of course, like, this discussion is uh, requires a little more attention here. I'm just giving you an overview right now as to how the switch works. Of course, there are many more things to be discussed about this, uh, probably in some other class. But yeah, that is what the switch basically does. And the switch is like a centralized networking component which helps other devices connect to it. Right? Switch, of course, is a very important thing when you connect LAN stuff. Even like if you have a digital space, your knowledge of things, like you can check with your the lab people. Maybe they'll help you identify a switch over there, and it's an interesting thing, right? It connects everything together. By the way, of course, you can like nowadays you could also have maybe if there are no wired connections, possibly in the place of a switch, you will have something which is called as an access point. Okay. So access point analogous to the switch, but yeah, I mean, like it is something that helps you connect wirelessly. Okay, so let's say you have phones and you have laptops, and maybe like these are wireless devices, right? And hence you would require not something like a switch, because switch essentially is something that you put wires into, like cables into. So if not that, what you can use is something which is called as an access point. Access point is like a wireless device which helps you connect with all your wireless stuff. So yeah, access points or wireless access points as they are called, they help you connect with wireless things. Now, all of these devices, like the ones that we have spoken of, by the way, I'll just mention Hub as well, although Hub has a lot of disadvantages. Okay, it's not an intelligent device. It's and it has many more issues uh, uh, with connectivity and understanding who's connected, and it is a non-secure device, by the way. So you will generally be not finding hubs in good enterprise networks, and also like switches are nowadays not expensive. So I mean, yeah, you don't really see hubs. But anyway, I'll just mention it here. Access points, like we just spoke, and all of these devices right now, by the way, work on something which is called as a single network uh, uh, you know uh, architecture. Okay, what that means is that, like, let's say you have an office, and you have a bunch of devices. Yeah, all of these devices can be connected using the devices that we just spoke of. Okay, but what if you have, let's say, some office two, okay, or maybe like this is a lab one, and maybe in some other location, in some other city, there is a lab two, okay, and I need to connect those devices with the devices in lab one. Okay, of course, these devices, the switch and hub and like stuff, they will not help you do that. uh, why would you ask? So the switch and hub essentially are single network devices which you will use it, uh, technically speaking, without going into too many details. Like I said, that because of the short nature of the class, we have limitations here, and to the depth we can discuss things. But essentially, for now, let's understand that the switch, the hub, the access points are mainly devices that you help connect with, like in a certain premise, in a certain location, which you technically call as the LAN network, right? And what we want to do right now is that the lab one and lab two, they are in separate spaces. Okay, meaning they are not part of the single LAN. Okay, so there is some LAN one and there is some LAN two that you need to now connect together over across the network. Maybe you'll be using the internet for this or something like that. But whatever you do, what you have to use something which is called as a router. Okay, so this router guy is the thing that will help you connect multiple networks together. So router, of course, is a very important component of the networking industry, and yeah, I mean, like routers. Uh, I mean, yeah, if you look at it, I mean, it looks similar to a switch, okay, meaning it's a box with those ports, but of course, internally it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like a switch. The router's main objective is to work with multiple networks, meaning you have a certain network one, which is a LAN one on this side, and you want to connect the network two, which is LAN two on the other side. And this is only where the router can help. In fact, you cannot do so with a switch. I mean, I can't simply replace a router with a switch. No, switches uh, are basically are single network devices. Okay, whereas the router is certainly used for multi network connectivity, okay, or inter-networking as we call it. Okay, so router stands as a very important device. Of course, switch has its own uses, router has its own thing, but yeah, I mean, the router, of course, is a very crucial component of the networking industry. Right. And when you build these networks, okay, as we just spoke of, I mean, of course, you can use it for various applications, as we just spoke of. Maybe you want to use it for communications. Maybe you want to use it for resource sharing. Maybe you want to use it for various other things, right? So you can use it for various applications when you build a network ground up from scratch, as we just spoke of. So yeah, certainly that is what networking essentially is. Okay. It is all of these things that we just spoke about, and you build it up from ground up from scratch so that at the end of the day, people can use it, right? Even, for example, you know that probably in your homes or in your lab right now, there are access points, there are routers, right, that help you connect to the internet, and because of that, we are able to communicate right now. Okay, uh, just take out the take away the router or the switch or the Wi-Fi. Okay, what are you left with? Nothing, right? We will not be able to communicate any longer. That is how important the networking industry is. It is the backbone of this entire world as we stand on it today. Take out the internet tomorrow, if the internet just blacks out, we are left with nothing, right? Internet, like I said, is the network of networks. It is what the world runs on. So yeah, importance of networking. By the way, we have just spoken a lot about the world. Like I said, it is the backbone of the world, right? It is the backbone of the world. Certainly, it is, right? Connectivity, like we said, uh, for example, yeah, I mean, like I have been saying, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you use, the entire world that is it is running on Amazon, and like shopping and stuff, that all of this, whatever you do, like, yeah, fine, the apps are there, but then what are they running on? It is the internet, right? It provides you with connectivity that the world so heavily today relies upon. Take out the internet, take out the networks, what are we left with? Nothing, right? Nothing will work. So I can't really stress more on the importance of the networking industry. And the networking industry, of course, is based on these devices, right, that we just spoke of, switches and routers and hubs, and these need to be managed. This is why the industry is so important. You need people to manage them, of course, to set them up, to work with them, so that the everything like runs fine, right? So yeah, so connectivity, of course, is one of the major factors, or the importance of networking industry as it is, right? So connectivity is something which is provided by networking, without which, of course, as you know, everything will fall flat on its face. Nothing will work. Apart from it, of course, when you do provide connectivity, you obviously have enhanced efficiency of things. Okay, for example, you and I right now. Okay, me not being present in your site, you not being present in my physical site right now. However, we are able to communicate, right? And it has saved a ton of time for you. It has saved a ton of time for me. And yeah, I mean, like, it is out of its nature to create efficiency, right? I mean, for the networking thing, what it does is, of course, at the end of the day, creates efficiency. Okay, for example, imagine all your photos and videos that you had to store earlier on your hard drive devices. Correct. Now, do you do that? No, right? You have your phone and you like click pictures and stuff, right? And all of that is stored on the cloud, right? So what is cloud? Cloud essentially is a network, right? So you whether you store it on like Google Photos or maybe even your Facebook servers, right? What are those? Those are networks, right? You sort of store things on the cloud using your networks. And yeah, I mean, like, now it has become easier to store things, retrieve things, and delete things. You no longer are worried about your photos and like stuff being stored on your phone and on your hard drives, and you don't need to worry about it in case they like your hard drive fails and everything is lost. No, right? You just put it on some cloud server and forget about it, right? It's Google's job to secure it and store it and ensure that it is still there. You don't have to worry about it too much, correct? This was, of course, earlier not possible. Without the internet, of course, everything had to be stored personally on your own devices. And yeah, devices failed, right? Devices failed. And when they failed, yeah, I mean, everything was gone, right? So, yeah, like earlier that was the case, but now it isn't, right? You just store something online and yeah, you just forget about it, right? It's Facebook or Google's duty and responsibility to take care of it, right? Um, that's what it is, right? Um, yeah, what people do not really know as of now is that security is also a part of the networking industry, right? So, Yep. So security, of course, is a part of the networking industry, right? And uh, because everything is going online, right? You have to have uh, you have to make them secure. For example, we just spoke of things right now. So let's say you're storing your photos and stuff, and maybe like these are like personal photos of yours, and you're storing on some cloud service. And yeah, I mean, obviously will be putting the on your server, and of course you don't want them to be leaked or maybe get hacked or something, right? And of course this is where security comes in, right? So network security is a very crucial part of the networking industry. And yeah, like that's how you basically end up with network security, right? So you have other devices like, for example, firewalls and stuff, and there are network security engineers that come into picture, and these people help you secure your data, your network, and keep the hackers out. Okay, so security is something that is provided by the networking industry as well. And yeah, I mean, of course the industry goes on evolving, right? um, so you probably heard of IoT, okay, which is Internet of Things, meaning literally with the advent of 5G, okay, what you would have is literally the entire world be connected uh, like it has never been before. Okay, so you might be thinking that yeah, we are like pretty advanced and like okay, fine, and the networking has advanced so much, and no, but it there is still a lot of scope, right? In fact, as we talk, 5G is being rolled out. It is being implemented in ways like never before. And essentially, what that is supposed to be developing in the future is something called as IoT, which is Internet of Things. And Internet of Things essentially means that everything is literally connected to the internet. Like it has never been in the past. Okay, so what that essentially means is maybe even your refrigerator, for example, or maybe your cars, okay, or maybe I don't know, like in the future your television or your dustbins even, or like everything is literally going to be connected to the internet. uh, and probably it will be using 5G, right? So you'll have data like nothing that you had previously. You have more connectivity, you have more information on literally everything uh, you know that you own. Okay, everything is providing you information. You can control those things over the internet. Maybe your even your fans and your lights and everything would be connected to the internet. Okay, and I mean I can go on. The innovations are simply uh, like going on, and for example gaming, you can now stream games, right? You have gaming servers from Nvidia and stuff. Now earlier what happened was, if you wanted to game, right, you would have to have exceptionally good hardware, right? Now that is not the case. You can essentially stream games. Okay, so for example, Nvidia will have this gaming cloud server of theirs, and you can play those games even from your mobile phones or maybe even your laptops, which are very basic. Okay, so you'll be essentially streaming games as you play them from the cloud. Okay, so that is like one more thing, and I can go on and on and on and on. Of course, we are not at the peak of technology at the moment, as you might imagine. No, we aren't. We are still evolving, and this will evolve into something still many, many times better with the advent of VR and stuff. Who knows? Like in the future, you will have a virtual workspace, and like as a norm, right? We don't know. Uh, yeah, I mean, like you and I are communicating right now like that, right? So who knows? Maybe all offices are VR, and of course, all of this requires networks, right, and internet and like stuff to function. So yeah, I can't really emphasize more on this, and uh, yeah, like you have this entire thing which rests on your network, and the place where you started is of course the certifications. Okay, so uh, the certifications, when you talk about it, they essentially are certificates that vendors provide you to tell you which basically tell you that you are certified in managing the networks. When you talk about certifications, one important certification that would certainly come up to mind is the CCNA, right? The CCNA certification. Uh, so CCNA, of course, is the essentially like initial certificate that you start with, and this CCNA certificate basically tells you that or it tells your employers that you are essentially someone who can manage networks. Okay, so it is easier for you to get into the job market and industry. A good thing is that you might not actually need the certificate, but a training is sufficient. Okay, because at the end of the day, the networking industry, please remember, is a skill based industry, meaning if you can manage switches, okay, if you can manage routers and you know how they work, okay, and if you have undergone a training, yeah, you can easily land up jobs. In fact, that is why the networking industry, please remember, is very forgiving. Okay, forgiving in the sense it has no entry barriers. As long as you can manage devices like so, or maybe like even firewalls and stuff, yeah, you can easily enter the market no matter what background you come from. Okay, I mean, of course, if you come from a technical background, that is certainly a plus. But if not, okay, in fact, the networking industry has a lot of people who are not from the technical background, and the simple reason is because it is so forgiving, simply because it is a skill based industry, and as long as you have the necessary skills to manage these devices, and you can prove your worth, right, and you can simply be a top earning like employee in this field. Okay, so based on time constraints, I will end this seminar here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a bit, some things about the networking industry. I wish I could have had more time. There are certainly many more interesting things that we could have spoken of. But yeah, I will end it here, and I will hand it over to Kuldeep at your end. Uh, right. So yes, right. We'll just end it here. Hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice day. Goodbye. The question answers, whatever you have, Kuldeep will certainly help you out over there. Right.